Welcome to Crafts of Ireland and our YouTube videos on how to do needle felting. In today's video, we're going to show you how to make our latest picture, and it's called a blooming donkey. So we're going to go through step by step how I needle felt this picture and the different details that we're going to add to it. So we're going to start off first by showing you what colour of fibres we've selected for to do this. So join us in our video, please. So for a blooming donkey picture, we need blue for our sky. I've also picked some white. We can use some clouds, also a tiny bit of white on its nose. I have natural grey Shetland, and that is what I use for the wall. The natural greys look better, and a little bit of black for to highlight through it. I have some various shades of green then that's going to do our grass area. I've picked some shades of browns to make our donkey. And then finally, for the flowers, I have some hand-dyed blue-faced Leicester locks. So they're just going to make some nice little flowers at the bottom of the wall. And as always, I have my faithful needle holder beside me that we've needle felted as well. And that's going to be coming out soon as a kit. And we'll have a tutorial available for that shortly as well. So join me and we'll get started making. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a sky. So for that, I have already started here. I'm just going to blend some blue and white fibre. And I always blend by pulling the fibres out and laying them back. I find it easier that you can keep the alignment of the fibres nice and straight, and it makes felting much easier. So just catch them, pull them straight out and lay them back into your hand. And then, as always, put them under your left hand and then pull your fibres across, which will spread them nice and evenly on your fabric. So this picture is approximately 8 by 6, and these are all wools that we've dyed ourselves from our own Roscommon sheep. They're a native Irish rare breed of sheep, and we're very lucky to have a small flock of them, and we use the wool. It's exceptionally good for needle felting. So there we go. We now have a sky left in place. So I'm just going to pick a needle and quickly going to stab it in. As always, remember with your needles, straight up and straight down. Your needles are not flexible, and if you don't use them straight into your fibre, you will risk breaking them. So just work them straight up and straight down. And of course, keep your hands back because they are sharp. Just watch where your fingers are. I always go a little beyond the area that I need so that one part will overlap the other. It just makes it easier. You're not filling in. If you leave holes in your work, you can just give it a gentle rub of your hand and that'll lift any of them holes back up. You don't need to overfelt. You want a little bit of texture and movement. And there we have a sky, and you can see where all the fibres have come through the back. So if you're doing this at home, you might want to felt it a little bit more, but we're not going to bore you today with watching us do it. So the next thing then is we need to create a wall. So again, as I mentioned, this is natural grey Shetland fibre, and the natural colours, you can see the variations of shades in them, and they're excellent for natural stone features. So I'm just going to lay that down without opening it up too much to keep some texture. And I don't want the top of my wall to be flat. A stone wall is never. If you're in Ireland, there's plenty of stone walls, especially in the west of Ireland. Some around where we live here as well. And they're hand built, so they're never going to be flat and even. There's often places where there could be a few stones missing, so you don't have to have them perfectly even, and I think they look a little bit more natural if they're a little bit up and down. So I'm going to work my way along here, and I'm going to build in my wall. So as you can see, we're building up the wall, and I try to pick some shades that are slightly different from other so that you have a bit of depth and colour. So I'm just laying down pieces, not open too much, and I'm working around them. I'm not felting it all flat. I'm leaving a lot of texture in the wall. So you can see almost where the stones are in it. Bottom doesn't need to be even as well because your grass and everything is going to grow up against it. So that is pretty much our wall in place. And then I'm going to take some of the black fiber and I'm going to open it out really, really fine. And I'm going to just run around some of the wall and the stones to give a little bit more depth of colour and a little bit more shade. And again, you're just going to do that the whole way across the wall. Just going to add some dark to highlight where the stones are. You can see once I put it over very lightly and work my way around it, I'm getting it into where I want the gaps in the wall to be. You can see now how each stone is starting to form, and that would be how you would do a stone wall in a picture as well. You want to add to a landscape. So we're going to continue to do that and work our way across the wall. So we're just working our way, almost finished across the wall. I'm adding in, as I said, the black outline just to give the wall a bit more detail. You can see how the stones are starting to appear. So I'm putting tiny little bits of black, almost like threads, over the wall to give definition to the stones in it. I don't want to flatten it all. So we've got a nice textured wall and we're almost at the end. I generally don't know my right from my left, but I do most of the time when I'm working. I will work from right to left. So there we go. Now we have a sky and we have a wall, and as you can see, I've left as much texture as I can between the stones so that it looks like each one is individual, and I'm not felting down every piece of it. I'm just felting around edges to give it that appearance that it is a stone wall. So that's quite a textured West of Ireland stone wall. So the next thing we have to do now is we have to add our greens. So I'm just, every so often I lift my work up so that I can take it off the mat. So we're going to lay down some greens, and again we can run them into the wall because the grass is going to grow up against the wall. So I'm going to work my way across with this one first. You don't want to felt too tightly at the bottom of the wall. Leave a little bit of texture. I have some various different greens. If you're buying a kit from us, we'll have some different shades of greens in it. It'll give a little bit more shade and depth. And if I have long bits like that, I'll generally let them run up on the wall and back down. So that's the next thing we do, is just add, again, we don't card the wool that we send out in our kits. So you get loads of nice texture and tips so that you can add depth to it. So again, across we go, and we'll add all that in. We've just quickly added the rest of the green across. You saw us at the start, so we've added in the rest of it. And I have some mossy green colour, and I'm just going to put a little bit of that on the wall because you'll get a bit of moss and lichens growing on the wall. We'll just add a little bit more detail to it. And these are just tiny bits to give a bit of colour through the stone as well. You can also add a bit of that through the grass if we want. It's actually, fibres in this are long, so I'm just shortening them a little bit. So whatever greens you have, just add them through. Variation in shades and give your foreground a little bit more depth. We have another colour here, a softer green, and that's use it to pick up the colours. So there we go. That's all our background, and now all that is left to add is our donkey and our flower at the end, which is the easy bit. That's annoying me there, so I'm just going to tidy those off. Sharp scissors is always useful to have. So there we go. We have our stone wall and our grass completed. And as you can see, the grass, I have it all grown vertically so that some of it is coming in on the bottom of the wall as it would, and a little bit of colour through the wall just to add some detail. And with the natural wool, you are getting that variation in shade, so it's not a monocoloured the same as if you used a dyed grey. It's much easier to achieve a natural wall effect. So now all that's left to do is the donkey. So I'm going to move all the other colours out of my way, and we're going to come in with the browns, and I'm going to use the one that I've already made just to guide me. And on our kit there will be a picture of the donkey on the front of the kit, so that should make it a little easier to figure out his shape and everything. So I'm going to start and blend 2 of the shades of brown just to get a mid colour. And again, donkeys vary in shades from greys right through to darker browns, so there's no right or wrong colour. You could have a white donkey and you could have a black one, so any of the shades in between is perfect. So just to give me an idea where I'm starting, I'm going to put his back in first and just give me a guideline. That's just quickly adding in its back. It's going to have a bit of a dip, and donkeys, brighter coloured donkeys, usually have a darker, like a cross on their back. So that's what this line here is on the original one. So the mane kind of comes down, and this is always across its shoulder. It's got like a cross shape, so we'll be putting in some darker detail on that. And then we have to start, so I'm going to start with the ears and hope that this goes right. So when you're doing animals, there is that little sense of difference that is either a right shape or a wrong shape. So the first thing I normally do is I work out where I want to start, and I pin down the top of the ear. And I'll get the shape roughly blocked in. And I can always come back then and felt this in a little heavier where we're working. Easier to work on top of it. So that's going to be my work area, and I'll just tidy that up and felt it in a bit heavier. So that's one ear. You can also add your shades and details, and we'll go for the second ear. I'll actually go darker brown. I can highlight it after. It's taking some of that fibre, and his ears are kind of spread a little, so we'll go about there. Just be careful with your needles. You don't want to put too much pressure on them. Yeah. Donkey has 2 ears. He's going to have a little bit of his mane sticking up between them. And then we're down for the side of his face. And with the hand dyed wool, I can go through it and I can pick shades that I want to use. There's usually a variation in them, so I can pick what I need. Yeah. I'm going down here, and then that's where his nose is going to be. And I'll highlight that again. I'm just blocking in shape that I need. Now we'll go for the other side of his face then. and then his forehead. Again, I'm picking and mixing the colours, and I'm breaking these to make them shorter. They're a bit lighter than what's behind, so it'll give me a little bit of shade on that side. And I need the outside of his ear to be a little lighter as well. And we're not going to worry too much at this stage once we get the most of it right. That ear is a little bit thin. I've just added a wee bit of a fill there. Slightly darker. And it's out over his eye. And again on this side. The good thing about needle felting is if it's not right, you can always lift it and start again. And I'm just going to pull it off the mat. Now we have a little bit of a gap here where I'm just going to fill in. The top of the wall. Sometimes when you lift it off the mat, your fibres can loosen slightly. Let's tighten it back in. Now, I'm going to stretch here and I'm going to bring in a tiny bit of white to put some detail on its nose. That'll start giving it a bit more shape. So that's roughly where we're going. And another little bit on top. Then I might go for some soft grey as well. He's starting to take shape. And I'm going to use a tiny bit of the same grey that I did for the wall. It's the very softest, brightest colour that I can find in it. Just to give my little colour on the top of his nose. I'll take that and I'll kind of fold it into the shape that I want, that it's easier to lay it down. And there we go. That's going to allow me to put in nostrils and a mouth. Yeah, make him a little different. I think he will give him a little bit of a white stripe up his head. So that you can do what you like with them. There's no two of them ever going to be identical, so I just want to come out a little wider there. I'll put in another little bit of mane. Make it a bit more exaggerated when we're finished. So that's our basic shape. We're starting to look like donkey's head. And then we have to add our details. So it's back to our black. Well, this is actually a natural colour. It's Schwarzbliss, or it's either Schwarzbliss or Ryland. I think could be Ryland, this one. And it's a natural black, so it's quite nice to work with. So for the eye first, the easiest way to make it is lay down some white. And we're just going to put in the white first. Might need to go back for another bit. That's an idea where the eye is going to be. And back for a tiny bit more, because we're going to be putting the black over that. Donkeys have quite large eyes. Our guy is going to have anyway. And it's one eye in, and we'll do the two of them when we're at it. And again, just tidy it up a little bit. You don't want to roll it into a solid piece, but you just want to tidy it a little bit to make it easier. And we're going about there. See roughly the placement of them. Tidy up our fibres here. I'll highlight the side of his head when I'm finished. Now in for our, I keep dropping it, I won't see where I have my black, I'll keep it up there. In for our eyes. Just take it and loosely place it where it's needed. If you haven't got enough, you can always come back for another bit. That's not too bad on that side. And then the fun part, give them two eyes that look reasonably even. Again, slightly more, it will bury down into it as you work it. Just take it, place it, and felt it in. Now, Blooming Donkey has two eyes. Next thing he needs is his nostrils, which almost look like an exclamation, not an exclamation mark, a comma. So we'll go with the first one. It's like a comma, a little bigger, coming into a point. And for our second one. White here, snuck in there a bit. I'm going to just take a scissors and tidy those out of my way. Donkeys, if you've ever been lucky enough to rub them, have the most soft, velvety noses. They're absolutely gorgeous animals. Well, there we go. And he needs a mouth. Be a happy chappy. So we'll take a tiny line. I've just pulled it out into almost like a string. A bit of a twist. And there we go. And I'm going to highlight the side of his head slightly. Tiniest line of black. Now it's time to tidy up the rest of them where we blocked them in initially. I'm just going to push those fibres down a bit further. Again, lift it up. I'm going to bring his mane now with a darker brown. Generally, a light brown donkey will have darker brown as main, so I'm picking darker pieces of my fibre. And we're going to give him a little mane. And as I mentioned as well, we want to make that cross on its back too. So I'm going to get rid of that. You can see how dark the mane is. It shows up. We can't see a tail or anything in this picture. He's just peeping across the wall. And I'm going to take, with the scissors, clip off a dark end. And we're going to put that in. A little bit of tidy up, an extra little bit of dark just on top of his head for his mane where it appears between his ears. And finally we put a tiny bit more dark on his back. Then we'll have a look at him and see what else we need. Just put an extra little bit in there just to highlight top of his back, or her, whichever the case may be. Now we're just going to examine it and see. And we need to highlight the ears. So I'm going to get some of the dark brown. So again, and just make them maybe slightly longer. And a lighter bit on this side. It's a better length. And do the same on the other one. And the dark on the inside. And the light on the outside. I think that's much better. Donkeys usually have good long ears. And we need to bring its back in a bit. And that pretty much is our donkey. And now for the easy bit. We want to bring in our Blueface Leicester locks. These are dyed a beautiful rich purple shade. And I'm just going to put them at the bottom of the wall. That's all we need to do to put some blooms with our donkey. The Blueface Leicester is fantastic for this because it's got texture, it's got loads of curls, and when we hand dye them we get variations in shades, so they show up really well. And finally, the last thing we need to do is just tuck a little bit of green in beside them. And that is a blooming donkey from Crafts of Ireland. So there we go. We've just created our donkey picture. So I hope you enjoyed our video. We look forward to you joining us, and do follow us on YouTube because we'll be adding lots more videos very soon.